everybody. This is another episode of On Heartfelt with Bobby on the Dialogues with Jagero show. My name is Roberta Bobby, and today I have a guest, of course, someone I admire. I told you guys I only invite people I truly admire and I'm excited to learn about. My guest today is called CJ Atemo, a bishop, a good friend, I hope tuko level ya kuitana friends, si tu colleagues ama acquaintances.
Yeah.
And today we're here to discuss something that I've not seen a lot of people talk about, which is positive male role models in the society. And before we get to that, I want to get to know CJ a bit more so that we can understand why I feel like he is eligible to be a positive male role model in the society. Thank you so much for coming on, CJ.
You're welcome, and thank you for having me. I think I'm getting famous now.
CJ, you've been famous way before.
Yeah, so glad to be here.
Thank you.
You're looking good.
Thank you.
And I'm looking forward to a great conversation.
Ooh, and you look good as well.
Thank you.
You know, we're just coming from, if you guys watch us, we do the Tuesday show on Citizen TV, the Daybreak show. We're just coming from there together.
Right.
So tusha complimentiana, lakini unakaa vizuri sana. CJ, who dresses you? How are you always looking so spick and span? Your suits, your clothes, your shoes, your watch, hey, kila kitu. Do you have like a closet budget? How do you do it? A stylist?
Well, I dress myself.
Ooh.
And most of the outfits I do right now, I do them by myself. I've got a company called Christivity Designs that does that. So growing up, I used to love doing stuff for myself. I would want to polish my own shoes. I'd want to iron my own clothes. My mom used to make fun of that because they'd feel that I take too much time in preparing. You know, I'd take the whole afternoon taking care of my shirt and my trousers and stuff. And I've learned to do that even over time, even when I've had people who could do that for me. I still want to do that. Even now, I mostly want to do iron my clothes. So I think I've just had a keenness around it. But because, again, I am in a lot of public spaces, you see, you've got to be presentable. So I don't overdo it. I just think I'm trying to be presentable. Yeah.
And where do you learn it from? Who do you say you pick this up from?
Well, my mom was a great influence to me and, of course, to her family. She was a teacher. So spent a lot of time around her because we grew up in a school compound, and then she was my teacher for 2 years. She brought out some things from me that was bold for her because it nearly looked like she was favoring her son, and I was the youngest of her children. But she brought out leadership in me, made me a class prefect at a very young age, brought me onto the stage to do public speaking at a very young age. And a lot of times people would think, well, she's favoring her son. So they wanted to see how I would perform in school and in class years after I had left her class. But time has proved that she wasn't wrong. It was a very interesting decision to make because sometimes you can overlook your child because you don't want to look like you're favoring them, yet they have got these gifts and stuff. But my mom, why I say she influenced me, my mom was the type that would never go to an event with the same dress she wore before. Every event, every new thing, I would see her go to her fundi. She had to get something new for that. And then she would wear something probably once and not wear it again and just leave it over there. So I think it rubbed off somehow. I don't know whether genetically or just by observation, but that rubbed off. One of my brothers as well, he was very keen on how he took care of himself. And when he was in campus, I was still in primary school, I would steal his clothes. So I don't know whether I had the taste or it was just, I would wear his shoes, his cologne, that looked very good. So I think the influences around me as well. But then as you keep growing, you also keep meeting people who are doing it better. So you may have it as a fetus in you, have some excellence, but then as you meet different people, exposed to different environments, you keep on getting people who are doing it better and better. And if you are keen, then you keep learning and adding to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was expecting you'd say maybe you learned it from your dad.
No.
But you said mom. How come you didn't say dad?
Well, I think the aspect of keenness and neatness, I learned that from my mom. My dad was generally what I would say absent. Absent because he worked away from where we lived. I grew up in Kisumu. He worked in the sugar company called Chemelil, which is about an hour. Those days, maybe it is shorter now, but those days it was about an hour away from Kisumu. And so he would come in once in a while, probably the most would be 2 times in a month, over a weekend when he's off work, unless he's on leave. But then the other thing with my dad was that he would really drink. So even when he would be around, he would be sober in the morning. Try to have conversations with him. He would say, well, let's talk about it when I come. Let me go out shortly. Then he'll come back in the evening. By the time he comes back, he would be high. He was not violent. He was not rude. He was not abusive. But then you see, the thing about what that alcohol would do is it would make him become absent emotionally. So he doesn't connect with you people. He doesn't have sober conversations with you. And you cannot talk to him when he's not high. So even when he would be high and then he tries to pick up a conversation, you wouldn't really have any conversation with him. He never took keen interest on what we were doing, school. So my mom had to take care of everything, the bills. My dad didn't. So, his presence, though, would make a little difference with one of my brothers who had really gone strong into drinking, and he was a bit chaotic. And so whenever my dad would be around, when my brother would hear the snoring, he would stay away. So I think just that presence and then him being there, so my brother knowing that there is a man in the house, that's the difference. But my mom did most of the things. So that's why I didn't mention my dad on that,
So this is so interesting to hear. I know you don't drink alcohol, but you mentioned that your brother drinks, and you're coming from a household where your father was an alcoholic. So how do you do that? How do you become the opposite of what you saw at home, and your brother follows this same path that your dad is going on? How is there a difference in trajectory of your lives between people who were brought up in the same household, under the same parents? What's up with that? How did that happen, rather?
First of all, my brother, he passed on about 12 years ago. But the thing is, and we had 2 brothers who were really drinking. The other stopped as well. He's still around. He's so fine right now. One passed, one stopped drinking. I think everything in life is a mirror, if not a screen. We look at it and then we make the choices. So we can never say that because this is what I saw, this is whom I am. Whatever you see before you is a presentation. Just like in marketing, you will have this product and the other product. And somebody has to choose what they feel suits their need. So if I walk into a shop, a supermarket right now, and I see the variety of goods presented, those goods will appeal to the needs that I have in terms of functionality. So having somebody before you who probably is a drunkard or is abusive or is not responsible, whatever it is, or even somebody who is responsible, still has to appeal to your core values and what you want. So it's a choice somebody has got to make. I'm going to be like the person that I see, or I don't want to be like he is. Because you also don't just see what they do, you see the impact it has on the other people. And so the question is, do I want to create this impact on the people around me? Do I want to be the kind of person who causes chaos around? Do I want to be the kind of person who will drink himself to the point where you can't take care of your kids, you no longer have any money, you don't even know what class your kids are in, you never show up for school events? Is that the kind of person I want to be? So it's one thing to see this person in what they're doing. It's another thing to look at the impact that they have. And you see, we were being affected by that impact. At about age 15, one time I had to leave school and go and see my dad. I thought my mom had done too much. And so this time I needed money and I felt, let me go and see my dad.
Sorry, your mom had done too much by leaving him, or?
No. She'd been doing everything, like taking care of us, all that. So she didn't leave. My mom never left, not at one point. So I felt she'd done a lot. So I needed to go to my dad to try and get some pocket money. So I get off from school. I was in a school somewhere in Rift Valley. So I get off from school and I go straight to my dad to ask for money. So at age 15, you can imagine I'm already thinking that mom is worn out by the responsibilities she's taking care of. She was a teacher, as I've said, and we would see the way, she'd take loans from the SACCOs for teachers those days. And we'd know that because, so now being the last, I was mostly home with my sister. And so I would be sent rather to her colleagues to become guarantors for school fees loan. So you get to know these things, Innocently, you'll be sent, take this form to teacher so-and-so, to this person, and you get to know that this is a loan your mother is taking so as to pay your school fees, because my mother took us to a private school in the 80s, late 70s, 80s. That wasn't the common thing for people to do. She didn't have much, but she valued education a lot, and she felt she wanted to do that. And again, she was teaching in that school. And I would see her taking care of the school fees for my brothers when they were in high school, 3 of them at the same time. That was a weight at that particular point. So by the time I'm getting to high school, and I'm in Form 2, so I decide to go and see my dad if he could help. And my dad told me he didn't have money. I went in on a Friday. So he told me he didn't have money. So on this Saturday, I was just walking around this place and just going around. So the sugar company, so you see you have a lot of plantations of sugar, nothing much to see. But I'm just walking around. And in the afternoon, at some point, I see people handcuffed. They've been arrested from the sugarcane, one of the sugarcane plantations. And they're being led by plainclothes policemen. And I see my dad.
Among the guys being
Yes,
handcuffed?
because you see, they were drinking, and those days, some of these drinks were considered illicit. So they had to go and drink them from within the sugarcane farms, to hide. So I see my dad among them, and I go to him. Can you imagine the trauma of having left school to come and visit your dad, and then your dad is arrested the next day? So he won't even be here. And I didn't have money now to go to Kisumu. I didn't tell them that I was going to go this direction. We didn't have phones. There were no cell phones those days. And my dad told me that there was money in the house, and he sent me to go and get money. So I am here torn and conflicted. First of all, because I feel sorry for him for having been arrested. But then now I'm feeling like you lied to me. You told me you didn't have money. And now that you have been arrested, you're telling me there's some money in the house. And all I needed was money to go back to school. It wasn't money I wanted to spend on myself. So I went back to the house. By the time I got the money and I left, came in, they had been taken to the police station. It was a bit of a distance. By the time I got to the police station, they told me he had been transferred elsewhere. It was getting a bit late, so I told them I want to go to that place. That was Miwani. They told me, please don't go. It's late, it's dangerous right now. The policeman who was at the station, he said, how did that man have a son like you? He couldn't understand that at 15, I'm fighting for my father's life for him to get out of the police cell and stuff, and I'm willing to risk and take the money. So we had that kind of relationship with my dad. So you see, I was impacted by the decisions that he was making, where he can't take care of me, and I'm in school, and this alcohol is so strong, or the gravitating towards drinking is so strong that he will not even spare anything for his child to go to school. So it's those things that you try then to make decisions. Though in the initial stages, I had some struggles around it. I did drink a bit. Okay, not a bit, a lot at some stage. And that was because most of my brothers, or rather all my brothers, the youngest of them is 7 years older than I am. So that was a whole generation between me and them, and then their friends. So the things that they were exposed to, where we grew up, we didn't have many people around my age. I think there was just one guy. So their lifestyle looked cool to us, because when you don't have father figures, then the older brothers nearly fill up that space. So their lifestyle just looked cool. So this could not be something that I would say that, influenced by my dad or something. I just thought it was cool, but at some point stopped it. So knowing the impact of the decisions or the behavior of somebody else gives you the opportunity to make your own decisions and choices. Yeah.
Oh, CJ, when you're speaking, it's so... do you do audiobooks?
No, I don't.
You
I?
should, yeah, you should. You should read out for us your books. For us who maybe can't sit down to read and we need to listen, your voice is amazing. The way you speak, even the way... it just takes me into a trance where I'm like imagining these things very vividly. It's like I was there in the sugarcane place with you guys. But I want to talk about, your childhood and, young adulthood a bit more. So you're in this environment where this is how it has been with your mom and your dad and the men around you. These are your older brothers. This is how they are. So you finish high school, you move on to college.
Yes.
So tell me a bit about this transition. You moving from home, now starting school. I'm guessing now this is where your life is beginning as an adult. Now you have to start making, grown-up decisions. How is the place you've come from impacting you at this point? What are you thinking as a young adult man? Do you have goals? What are you thinking about? Are you thinking about the next drink, getting married? What really, where was your mind headspace at that time?
I think I had a very troubled transition. Then I'll take it back a bit. When I first went to join school, and by that I mean primary school, when I sat for my interview, the head teacher then, he was an Indian, looked at the class 1 teacher and said the mother told him everything. I never knew the impact of those words until later on, because what this man was saying is that I was not earning my place by merit. He was saying I had been assisted. And that stigma remained for a while, where people would think that you don't deserve whatever you're getting because they think you have been favored. So I felt like I needed to prove myself a little bit more. That's why I talked about the decisions that my mother made when I was in the lower primary, and those decisions, of course, then it kept on adding to the stigma of he's being favored. When I went into what they call upper classes, that is from standard 4 onwards, the teacher there was waiting to see my performance, because I was a discussion in the classroom, in the staff room rather. I was a discussion already, why I was topping and leading the class and why I was doing all these things, and they were all pushing the narrative that I was being favored by my mom. That's significant for me, because then it started exerting a certain kind of pressure, where you're coming into classes, you're a kid, but then you have this pressure just because your mother is a teacher and you're performing well, and they all think it's because your mother is doing this for you. And then that narrative would go even to the students. They say, well, she steals exams for him.
Anapewa Mwakenya wakienda home.
Yeah. So one time in a class 4 class, I think we were just starting to learn about science, and then this teacher asked about some things, so I was able to answer. Remember, my brothers were in their teens by then, and that teacher went to another class and said I was a teenager in a small body. So the level of pressure and the level of scrutiny that I was going through was just outrageous. So what that did, it kind of like alienated me. Why? Because the kids think that you will pass exams even without you studying because you're being favored. Then at some point they begin to realize, okay, well, maybe he's bright, maybe. So you get kind of alienated, because then you're not like a normal child that people will receive and play with, because they feel they'll play with you and then you will talk them up. So I think this thing, the pressure from the teachers, and sometimes my mom would get a wind of the things that they would be saying in the staff room, and my mom used to talk a lot, so that would come back. That pressure, and then this thing from the kids, and then from the class, and then you need to perform well. I remember, Bobby, one time I was caned for having one wrong sum in my standard 6. I remember my teacher, I thought I'd done well. We only had 25 sums. I got 24 right. So that was a 96 out of 100. And he caned me for not getting that one. And he said,
You're bright. You should
yeah,
have got
like
it.
that particular one. He said, so it was a kind of crazy thing. And that used to happen even with my mom. Like, she will see you top the class, but then she feels like your marks dropped. So there was never anybody clapping at any one point. Nobody is saying, well done. It switched from a place where you don't deserve it to, why are you doing less? You should be doing all this much. So that pressure on me, and then now being with people, they're in their teens and stuff, I think it was thrown off balance. So I was trying to find my identity. And in trying to find my identity, then I went off in quite a number of things, even in my earlier days in high school. So I indulged earlier, ran into trouble.
Tell us about the trouble.
Well, no, I don't want to embarrass. I don't want to embarrass my children.
Sometimes it's nice. They see Kume daddy is a normal guy. Kume he does normal things.
Well, I have to control the narrative.
Yeah.
But I got into trouble a lot, a bit. So the latter part of my primary school and the beginning of my high school. But that's where, again, you realize the importance of having a father figure who probably then would have put checks and balances on me. I think there was just something coming through which is nearly like a rebellion. I remember I didn't even want to do well in academics because I felt like the entitlement of the other people was so great that they would never appreciate the fact that I was still doing well. They would keep on asking, why did you drop in this? Why didn't you get a 90? Why did you get an 80? Why have you gotten a 77? So I started nearly hating academics. Then I remember a cousin of mine years back, I told him, I don't even want to go to a national school. I want to go to a place where I'll live a normal life, where I will be able to do academics and sports at the same time. So I'm at the age, I think then I was about 12. I'm at that age, and look at how I was thinking already because of that pressure. But of course, again, I had all these people who were very impressionable on myself. I think I was a bit curious and very, I would say, daring. And so I tried a few stuff here and there. So did the drinking, tried smoking, that didn't work, didn't stick on me. Did the drinking, that went in a bit. And because what I would hear from the guys then is that you take certain kinds of alcohol that shows that you're a man. So for us, it was the proof that you're a man. And if you drink and you're not getting drunk, then that would be masculinity. That would prove that you're a man. So you take the hard drinks to prove that you're a man, not necessarily because you want the drink, but this is the definition, because the guys around would be going into those days, they were not called clubs, they were called discos. And and they go out and they come back, and the whole conversation would be, so-and-so got drunk after 2 bottles. That's a weak guy. So-and-so got drunk at this. So I was nearly in the place of initiation. It's a stage of initiation. So you think that the initiation into manhood is the drink, and it's what kind of drink are you taking? How strong is it? And what effect does it have on you? So yeah, I got myself into trouble in that, I think, trying to define myself as a man.
But do you think manhood can be defined? Or what does manhood mean to you? Manliness, being a man. What does it mean to you? Because unanishangaza sana CJ. Nobody has ever told you these things. Nobody has taught you these things. Nobody held your hand and said, Chris, this is how you show up as a man. This is what you do as a husband. This is how you are as a dad. But you're acing it, and you're doing it so amazingly, and you're showing. I haven't had anyone complain yet about you, and I have no complaints, even how you show up in our friendship. So
you see the intentionality. We are surrounded by great influences as well. They're always people who are doing the right things. The only challenge I feel that this generation has is they think that every positive thing is public. And they assume that if something is famous, then it is the standard. you will have a lot of great influences around you, people who are not in notoriety. They're literally in obscurity. But you can see a neighbor who treats their children well, shows up for the wife. So this fixation with we are only influenced by people who are public and people who are famous and who have large following is the reason sometimes we think we don't have influences. But you could have your greatest influence in your grandparents or in an uncle, in a neighbor, in a friend, people who have understood the simplicity of life and the construct of it. And they're just good human beings. They are honest, they're dedicated, they're devoted to whatever they're doing. They may not be rich, but they have raised their children in a certain way. This is how they think, this is how they plan their things. If you look for it, you will find it. And if you're willing, you will learn it. You will learn it from anybody around you. So I think one of the things is that we look for things sometimes in the wrong places, thinking that just because we see this guy on TV that CJ, so now I'm going to learn from him. You may, but also there's the possibility of maybe I'm not good influence. Maybe I just know how to put myself on a platform, but I'm not good influence. So you need to then weigh and ask yourself, should I follow him because he's on TV, or should I follow him because I feel that there are things around him that I would want to add to myself? On the other hand, you may find a guy who maybe just has 100 followers on Instagram and something. You cannot say that there's nothing to learn from him because he has no followers. Followership is not the mark of masculinity or humanity. No, it is the person's values. So whether you're talking about masculinity or you're talking about what defines a female, it's their values. It's what they believe. It's how they see themselves, and that shapes how they see other people, the world around them, what they want to bring into this world. What do they ooze? Is it respect? Is it care? Is it love? Do they make you secure or do they make you unsettled? That's what defines this person. What defines me is how I make you feel, who I bring to the table to you. That's my masculinity. If I come in and then I bring fear, then I have toxic masculinity. If I come in and you feel safe, then I'm bringing to you positive masculinity. So what energy do I bring to you? That shows you what I have defined myself to be. If I am man enough, I don't have to intimidate you, nor be intimidated by you. We've got an age gap of over 20 years, but I'll hang out with you because I'll see you as Bobby. Brains, brilliance, and all of it. So I don't have to come every time and tell you, you should listen to me. You know, you're younger. You know, when I was your age, I don't have to keep...
I've never seen you do that. I've never had you do that. If anything, I always just see you trying to learn from everyone in the room.
Yeah, so because if you understand that you come in as a person and the other person comes in as a person, then you don't have to put them down. That doesn't make me a man, that I'm making you masculate you. I'm emasculating your voice. You know, that is not what makes me a man. That makes me a very insecure person. So masculinity is security, satisfaction, safety, simplicity, service to people around you, that you ooze of that to them, strength. But you know, you cannot be oozing out strength and security and service to people when you're not satisfied. So am I satisfied with whom I am? I may be improving and I have a lot of room to improve, but am I satisfied enough with whom I am? Even with what I don't know, even with what I don't have. See, these are the things that make people feel I need to get something else so that people can accept me, or so that I'm now a man. Maybe I need to get more money. Maybe if I get more power, or if I change the construct of my body.
More women.
But if I am satisfied in whom I am, I'm able to show up with you and I can tell you, well, I don't know about that, or I'm not able to do this, and I'm not feeling intimidated. And when I do that, it also gives you the opportunity to show up the way you are. So it makes you feel safe. Do you realize that when you feel safe, then your guard comes down and you don't have to do too much? It's the reason when you came in here, one of the first things you did, you removed your shoes.
Yeah.
Why? Because now you're safe.
Comfort.
You're comfortable. And I think that real masculinity does that. The people around you, your friends, your wife, your children, they come in and they feel the sense of safety. You don't even have to, you don't have to raise your voice. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to show that you sit on the throne and when you come in, everybody has got to understand that power came into do.
Yeah.
Real power is silent. Real power is silent. It will be felt even when it is not talking. You will get to know it. So a man is defined by what he believes. A man is defined by what he thinks. A man is defined by how he treats other people.
That's so true. And, you talked about being in high school or even when you were playing the sports. And the model of masculinity, the reason why you stopped playing ball is because, the men were being macho and thinking that they can enforce their manliness with the violence and stuff like that. And a lot of men grow up around this. My brother, even my younger brother, has consistently been trying to explain to me, maisha ya dem na maisha ya chali si same. Wewe utatoka hapo ufike mali unafika, lakini mimi nitasimamishwa na makarao. Kuna chali ataniperemba pale nimwachie 50 bob anishike mifuko nitoe sijui chwani. Kuna, if you have dreads, you're treated a different way. If you're silent, people don't give you respect. So many people might argue different things around what masculinity really is. So how do you get to a point where you're able to define it for self, and when does it start being a me thing? Because we grew up in a society where, like you said, there's all these influences and all these experiences we're going through. And as it is, the jammers these days, they don't write for us letters. They don't sneakisha.
No, they send you texts.
And emojis. In fact, they're asking us, what do you bring to the table? Those are the kind of questions they're asking us. And so for you, with all this, how does someone get to a point where you're able to say, this is the masculinity I'm defining for myself, and this is how I want to show up as someone who has service, shows service, and all these things that you've mentioned?
It comes back again to my spirituality as well has formed a whole and huge part of how I see things. Because I didn't have a father that I could really learn from. I realized later that he did shape something in me, because then it gave birth to something I started doing with men, a whole ministry and mentorship that I was doing with them. And that's because I was trying to find myself. Again, the element of intentionality. That I didn't have this. I was trying to discover myself and find it and then share it with other people. And so we started doing something with men and mentorship over time. But there wasn't that active, mentorship. And so again, I had to run to the Bible. I did. And I started looking at fatherhood from the perspective of God. And I started looking at masculinity from the perspective of Jesus. He was a man. And he was all powerful, but how did he carry himself? How did he treat other people? In fact, in the scripture, we are told, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. So that becomes the model. So the question is, how did he love the church? And he says, he gave himself for it. So you learn how he showed up for his woman, who is the church. He gave himself up, sacrificed. He made himself of no reputation, brought himself low. So he didn't see the need to, throw around his weight. He had all this power, all this strength, humbled himself, became of no reputation, hung on the cross so that he may deliver his bride, that is the church. And so that thinking is the thinking that defines for me masculinity, that you don't have to throw your weight around. It is more of service. It's how you're making the other person become. And it actually says that he made his bride presentable. So that's how I learned that you make your woman become whom she's supposed to be. And you make them by the things you say, by the things you do. You're supposed to improve on their lives. You're supposed to make them become a better person. You can imagine somebody hanging on a cross and dying over there. What's a higher sacrifice than that? So what is me going to work to take care of my family? What is me swallowing my pride to take care of this? So that defined for me some of those things. then just then having my foundation, and you learn that love is patient, love is kind, love does not keep a record of wrongs and stuff. You start learning love, because out there, what we define love is really what we take from people and how we get. So you start learning, shaping your motives as well. And it removes the thing of looking at what you get from this person, and you start working on yourself in whom you are and what you bring to the relationship. And you get to know that if they don't respond to you in the way that you want them to respond, that's their responsibility. But you have your own responsibility. You have your part to play. I need to say this, Bobby, that a human being is spirit, first of all, then has a soul, and then lives in a body. All of us are spiritual. That's why we will seek something. So somebody may go to a shrine, somebody may go into this religious thing, somebody will go into mysticism, somebody will go into something, but everybody is seeking something. Everybody's seeking something. Somebody will go into meditation and stuff. But that shows you that there is a certain void that the human being has, because life begins way before it even starts, including even in African thinking. They knew that there is the pre and the post life. They understood that. So whether they were talking about ancestors or something, one thing that most people will agree is that there is this aspect of spirit. Now, you are not what we see. You are whom you are on the inside. That's why when you work on the person who is on the inside, what we see becomes very different.
Yeah.
If you only work on the outside, but the inside is not worked on, see, you can do your face and do everything. If you're angry, it will show. If you're depressed, it will show. If you're not well, I'll see it through your eyes, because that tells you the real energy comes from the inside. And most people neglect that aspect of working on who they are internally. And your spiritual life is a personal responsibility. So if I learn to be kind to you and you're not kind to me, I shouldn't then change and become an unkind person. Maybe I may know how to relate with you and say, okay, well, I don't think I want to relate too much with Bobby, because she may move me into becoming a person I don't want to become. She may push me into that place, so I'll know how to interact with you and say, well, I'll probably do 5 or 10 minutes. We'll say hi. We don't go too deep, because you have determined to be unkind. But I want to remain kind. So if you're going to abuse me, I'll say, no, I'm not going to become abusive to this person. I need to contain myself. I will work on myself. If I realize I have anger issues, I start working on it. Like, I don't want to be angry. I don't want to be doing this. The people who work with me, they'll tell you, and I do this with them sometimes. I ask them, am I the same as how I was 10 years ago, 5 years ago? And this, no, you've changed. You've become more patient. You've become all of this. Because it's very intentional. Because sometimes you feel like, all right, I don't like how I made that person feel. I may be justified in how I felt, but I don't like how I made them feel. I can do it different and better. And you start working on yourself, so that when you're dealing with the other person, you're not coming in entitled. You know that the work is on you. So for me, again, the foundation of the Bible has been now the greatest motivation and inspiration of what I do.
Okay. CJ, tell me, how are you feeling today, right now, in this moment? How are you feeling?
Well, I think it's such a great feeling to have this conversation. Generally, I don't do much of personal conversations unless I just decided, but I feel good about it. You know, looking back, I'm still a lot of work in progress, Bob. It's a lot.
Ukisema hivyo, sisi tutasema nini?
No, it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. It's a lot of work that I've got to do. You keep on finding aspects of your life, areas of your life showing up. Some that you thought you had dealt with, overcome, showing up in different spaces. And I wrote a whole book about that one time. On how you can be winning in so many other areas or certain areas, and then you've got these secret battles that will even threaten how you show up in different spaces. So there will be the CJ that people see, then I still have to fight secret battles around myself, around my things, maybe how I relate with people, maybe in how I think, my mentality, temperaments and all that. So you constantly have to work at it. what many people don't understand is the pressure of being in the limelight. In fact, I don't like the limelight. I just love living my life. When I leave this place, the first thing I will do, and she will tell you, they all know, the first thing I'll do, go home, change into a t-shirt or something, so that nobody will be able to recognize. I just love living life in the quiet place. But there's a lot of things that we work on. This being in the limelight, you're here, then maybe you're working on something. There are times I've come, for example, to the show on Citizen, and then the topic is something I'm dealing with in my house. And so I'm sitting over there, I'm like, man, why did I show up today? It could be something to do with how we communicate, and I'm having a communication issue in my house at that particular point. It could be something that my wife and I are dealing with, and then I've showed up over there, and I'm not the one who brought the topic. And sometimes, sometimes it's there. But the one thing I've got to constantly then do is when I show up in public, I need to tell you what I believe is the right thing, not enforce my position. So if I am not communicating well, I will not come and tell you that it is okay. I will still tell you, you need to do this. And there are a lot of times, Bobby, I will leave the place and go back home and I know I need to work on this based on even what I was saying. And I know, okay, well, I need to do this. But I'm feeling good. It's a good feeling, you know, for where I am. A lot to do, hoping to become better. But yeah, I've come from where we're coming from is farther than where we're going to.
Have you always been open about, discussing or communicating your feelings? Has it always been easy for you to answer that question? Like, CJ, how are you feeling? And you're just so ready to tell me this whole story about all the feelings you have.
No. Again, I don't like the focus being here.
I have a reason why I'm asking.
But again, I don't think that we grew up expecting people to want to know how you feel. So you get bottled up. I told you guys one time, the first time that I had a hug with a guy, so I'm in campus, he was studying his postgraduate, he was doing his master's. He's a close friend of mine, great guy. He's now a professor at 2 universities. And then he came and he told me, bro, come and give me a hug. And he didn't know the fears that I had, because this was strange to me. We didn't grow up thinking that you needed to be open about feelings. And if people talk about right now that boys are told, you're a boy, show up and be strong, how much more was that in the 70s and the 80s?
Even worse, probably.
Yeah, it was completely worse. I mean, who would care? Who would care that you went out, got into a fight, you were beaten? That would be very shameful. You've been beaten. How are you beaten? You needed to have beaten her up. Don't get into a fight and then come back over here crying.
As a man.
Yeah. You get injured out there, it will be, that's boys. That's how boys are. That's what a boy is supposed to be. You fell down. Okay, now get up. That's what makes you a man. And sometimes you actually have genuine injuries and you're feeling the pain. A girl leaves you. How can you even feel bad that a girl left you and there's so many girls out there? Don't talk about a heartbreak. So we didn't really grow up with the thought that we had the opportunity to share our feelings. So it's things that you learn as you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so true. So what do you think could be done differently right now to encourage men to be able to show up in, better ways, to want better for themselves? What is something, you're pushing for, even with your mentorship programs with men and, wanting to provide that, to be a role model for men?
I think you've got to understand that as a man, you're a whole package. As I said, you're a spirit, you're a soul, you're a body. Let me leave the spiritual part of it for now, which I believe is very, very key and very foundational. You see, man, the male, was created by God. The woman came from within the man. That means that the first relationship that the male in the Bible had was with God. That's a primary relationship. That's a primary relationship for the woman, because she came from the ribs of the man, when she came out, she found a man saying, this is bone of my bones. And you will realize that for most women, their foundational relationship is with a man. Whether it is a father, it is a husband, it is a friend, whatever, you will find that is very foundational. When you are stressed out, if you have somebody to bounce this off, you're fine. But now, for men, the reason we say men don't have relationships and they do not have this is because their primary relationship was supposed to be with God. And then they would now draw from there and pour back this side. They would have learned love from God and then learned how to love their wives. They would have learned how to show up on this side, become strong, and then pour it on this side. Women do it well because they receive from the man and then they pour into the children. But now the man cut off that. So that's a whole conversation for another time.
Day. Yeah.
But then the part I wanted to bring out is that men have to understand that they are emotional beings. You cannot relate with other people without emotions. So if you don't take care of your emotions, you are going to destroy the things you care for and the people that you care for. You're going to hurt them. You will hurt them either actively or passively, because who knows what drove my father into drinking? It may have been emotions that he never took care of. And to escape them, he went into alcohol. What was the effect of that? He was not emotionally present for his children. What's the weight of that? We're still carrying it up until now. So when you don't take care of your emotions, you are also being selfish. Because you're going to hurt some people, either actively or passively, intentionally or non-intentionally. You're going to not love people the way they need to be loved. You're not going to connect with people like you should. You'll be connecting with people and you're the anxious attachment styles, and so you come in fully, but I'm very suspicious because I'm not emotionally well, because somebody hurt me, so I'm coming to Bobby, but I'm very cautious, and so Bobby doesn't know whether she should come in and plug in or not, so I'm denying Bobby an opportunity that she should have had just because I've not dealt with my emotions. Or to cover up, then I come out with negative emotions like anger, or now I'm always this tough and macho because I'm scared that if I open up myself, I actually have deep feelings and respect for this girl, but I'm trying to show myself that I cannot be weak, so I'm going to hurt her. And she will think this is the norm. So I start breaking her, and she feels like, so I shouldn't expect love or respect from anybody. This is the norm. Men have to understand that they're emotional beings. So whether you have gone through loss of a job or grief or some pain or something, heal it. Heal it. Get that thing healed. Talk about it. Find help. Find the support. This is not just for you. It is important for you, but it is important for the people around you as well.